When two broken hearts made a family. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and second chances. Sarah Chen sat by the window, watching her breath fog the glass as February wind rattled the panes. She was 43 years old, and this was her first date in 6 years. 6 years since David died. She smoothed down her daughter's hair one more time, though Emma didn't need it. At 8 years old, the girl was already learning to be patient with her mother's nervous habits. "Mom, you're doing it again," Emma whispered, but she was smiling. "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry." Sarah checked her phone. 5 minutes until he was supposed to arrive. Her hands were shaking. Maybe this was a mistake. "Grandma says you need to live again," Emma said matter-of-factly, the way children do when they're repeating grown-up wisdom they don't quite understand yet. Sarah's mother had set this whole thing up. "He's a good man," she'd said. "A single father. Works in construction. You two have a lot in common." What she'd meant was, "You've both lost someone. You both know what it's like to wake up in an empty bed and make breakfast for one child instead of a family." The bell above the door chimed. He was taller than she'd expected from the one photo her mother had shown her. Maybe 6 feet, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples and shoulders that looked like they carried weight every day, both literal and otherwise. He wore a white button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, and when his eyes found hers across the coffee shop, Sarah saw something she recognized immediately. Fear. The same fear she felt. Michael Grant had been a widower for 4 years. His wife, Rebecca, had been sick for 2 years before that. Cancer. The kind that takes everything slowly, room by room, until the whole house feels empty. He walked toward their table, and Sarah stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. "I brought my daughter," she said, the words tumbling out before he could even say hello. "I hope that's okay. I'm sorry, I should have texted you, but I couldn't." She took a breath. "I'm sorry. This is Emma." Emma gave a small wave, suddenly shy. Michael looked at Sarah, then at Emma, and for a moment Sarah was certain he was going to turn around and walk right back out that door. This was too much, too fast. What kind of person brings a child to a first date? What had she been thinking? Then Michael did something unthinkable. He stepped aside, and behind him stood a boy. "This is Jake," Michael said quietly. "He's 10. I couldn't leave him with a sitter tonight because, well..." He ran a hand through his hair, and Sarah saw the exhaustion there, the weight of single parenthood. "Because I was too nervous to do this alone." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Sarah laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh or a nervous one. It was real, bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her chest where she'd forgotten laughter lived. Michael started laughing too, and then the kids were giggling, and the 4 of them just stood there in the middle of the coffee shop, laughing like people who'd been holding their breath underwater for too long. They sat down together, the 4 of them, and it felt easier than Sarah had imagined. "I'll get us some hot chocolates," Michael said, looking at the kids. "That okay with you, Sarah?" "That's perfect." While Michael went to the counter, Emma leaned close to her mother. "He seems nice," she whispered. "Yeah," Sarah whispered back. "He does." Jake was quiet at first, the way boys sometimes are when they're trying to figure out if it's safe to be themselves. But Emma had always been good with other kids. She'd gotten that from David, that easy warmth. She started asking Jake about school, about what games he liked, about his favorite subjects. Gradually, the boy opened up. Michael came back with a tray full of steaming mugs. Hot chocolate for the kids, coffee for the adults. "So," he said, sitting down across from Sarah, "I guess we're doing this differently than most people." "I guess we are. Your mother told you about Rebecca." Sarah nodded. "And my mom probably told you about David." "She did." Michael wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. They were working hands, scarred and calloused. I'm sorry. 6 years that's recent. 4 years is too, Sarah said gently. There's no good timeline for this kind of thing. They talked while the kids colored on the paper placemats the barista had given them. They talked about the small things first. Work, the weather, how hard it was to get kids to eat vegetables. Then, slowly, they talked about the harder things. Michael told her about the last year of Rebecca's life, about how Jake had been only 6 years old and too young to understand why his mother was getting thinner, quieter, smaller. About the night she died, and how he'd had to tell his son that mommy wasn't coming home from the hospital. Sarah told him about David's heart attack. How sudden it was. How she'd been making dinner when the hospital called. How Emma had been only too young to remember her father clearly, and how that broke Sarah's heart in a different way, that her daughter would grow up with photos instead of memories. Do you talk to her about him? Michael asked. Every day, Sarah said. I tell her stories, show her pictures. I don't want her to forget him, even if she can't remember. That's good, Michael said. That's really good. I do the same with Jake. The conversation flowed easier after that. They discovered small coincidences. They'd both grown up in the Midwest, both loved old movies, both had fathers who'd taught them that hard work was its own reward. Michael made Sarah laugh with a story about Jake trying to make pancakes by himself and somehow ending up with batter on the ceiling. Sarah told him about the time Emma decided to give the dog a haircut. An hour passed, then 2. The kids had finished their hot chocolate and moved on to sharing a cookie, their heads bent together over Jake's phone as he showed Emma some game he liked. They're getting along, Michael observed. Yeah, Sarah watched them, feeling something warm and unfamiliar in her chest. Hope, maybe, or possibility. Emma doesn't have many friends. We moved after David died, and she's always been a little shy. Jake too, Michael said. Other kids don't always understand. They don't know what to say to the kid whose mom died. Yeah, Michael looked at her then, really looked at her, and Sarah felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. Can I be honest with you? He asked. Please. I almost canceled tonight. 3 times. I sat in my truck outside my house, telling myself this was crazy, that it was too soon, that Jake needed me to focus on being his dad, not on. He gestured vaguely between them. I almost canceled too, Sarah admitted. I got as far as the parking lot before I convinced myself to come inside. What changed your mind? Sarah looked at Emma, who was laughing at something Jake had said. She did. My daughter. I realized I was so busy trying to be strong for her that I forgot she needs to see me live too. Not just survive, actually live. Michael nodded slowly. Yeah, that's exactly it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Do you want to get some dinner? Michael asked. There's a diner 2 blocks down. Nothing fancy, but they make a mean meatloaf, and the kids would probably like it. Sarah smiled. That sounds perfect. The diner was one of those old-fashioned places with red vinyl booths and black and white checkered floors. A jukebox in the corner played songs from the 50s and 60s. The waitress was a woman in her 70s named Dolores who called everyone, "Hun," and didn't write down their orders because she'd been doing this for 40 years and never forgot a thing. They slid into a booth, kids on one side, adults on the other. Emma and Jake were chattering away now, the initial shyness completely gone. They were comparing notes on their teachers, their favorite TV shows, the injustice of bedtimes. Your mom makes you go to bed at 8:32? Jake asked, incredulous. 8 on school nights, Emma said solemnly. That's rough. Michael and Sarah exchanged amused looks. I think we're being judged, Sarah whispered. Harshly, Michael agreed. Dinner arrived. Burgers for the kids, meatloaf for the adults, a mountain of fries to share. They ate and talked and laughed, and somewhere in the middle of it all, Sarah realized she felt something she hadn't felt in 6 years. Normal. Not happy. Exactly, not yet. But normal. Like maybe she was still a person who could sit in a diner and share fries and make small talk about nothing important. Like maybe she was more than just Emma's mom, more than David's widow. After dinner, they walked back to the parking lot together. The February air was cold and sharp, and Sarah pulled her coat tighter around herself. "Thank you," she said to Michael. "For tonight. For understanding about Emma. Thank you for understanding about Jake." Michael paused, hands in his pockets. "Can I see you again?" Sarah's heart did a small flip. "I'd like that. Next weekend, maybe. We could take the kids to that new animated movie. Make it official that we're doing this whole thing backwards. Most people don't bring their kids to the first date. Most people aren't us." Sarah smiled. "No, I guess they're not." Jake and Emma were standing by Michael's truck, still talking, seemingly oblivious to the cold. "I should get her home," Sarah said. "School tomorrow." "Yeah, Jake too." They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to leave. "Sarah," Michael said. "Yeah, I'm really glad you didn't cancel." "Me too." He leaned in, just slightly, just enough, and kissed her cheek. It was gentle, respectful, the kind of kiss that said, "I see you, I understand, and I'm not going anywhere fast." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears. "Good night, Michael." "Good night, Sarah." In the car on the way home, Emma was quiet for a few minutes before she spoke. "Did you have fun, Mom?" Sarah glanced at her daughter in the rearview mirror. "I did, sweetheart. Did you? Jake's really nice. He told me about his mom. How she got sick. That must have been hard for him to talk about. He said it's okay to miss people. That missing them means you loved them." Sarah's throat tightened. "He's right about that. I wish I could remember Dad better," Emma said quietly. Sarah pulled the car over into a parking lot and turned around to face her daughter. "Come here, baby." Emma unbuckled and climbed into the front seat, curling up against her mother. "You know what I think," Sarah said, smoothing Emma's hair. "I think love doesn't need memory. You love your dad because of who you are, because you're part of him. That doesn't go away just because you can't remember. Do you think Dad would be okay with you seeing Michael?" Sarah had wondered that herself, late at night when she couldn't sleep. "I think your dad loved me enough to want me to be happy. And I think he'd want you to have people in your life who care about you." "I like Michael," Emma said. "And I really like Jake. Yeah, he gets it, you know. About losing someone." Sarah held her daughter close and looked out at the night. The stars were bright despite the city lights, and somewhere out there, she thought David might be looking down at them. "Thank you," she thought. "Thank you for the years we had. And if you can, help me be brave enough for what comes next." 3 weeks later, the four of them went to the movies together. 6 weeks after that, Michael made dinner for everyone at his house, spaghetti that was slightly overcooked but tasted perfect anyway. 2 months in, Sarah invited them over for Sunday brunch, and Jake taught Emma how to make pancakes without getting batter on the ceiling. It wasn't perfect. There were hard days, days when Sarah missed David so much she could barely breathe, days when Jake got quiet and Michael got that faraway look in his eyes. But they learned to hold space for each other's grief while also making room for something new. 1 year after that first date, Michael proposed in the same coffee shop where they'd met, with both kids there, both of them in on the secret. Emma cried happy tears, and Jake hugged Sarah like she'd already been his mom for years. They got married in a small ceremony that fall, and on Sarah's side of the church, They left 2 seats empty in the front row. One for David, one for Rebecca. Because love doesn't end just because life does, and the people we've lost deserve to be part of our new beginnings too. Sometimes, the best families are the ones we piece together from broken hearts and brave choices. Sometimes, love is bringing your daughter to a blind date and finding out the other person brought their whole heart too. Thank you so much for listening to this story today. If it touched your heart, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to hear more stories about life, love, and second chances, and please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear about your own experiences with finding hope after loss. Your stories matter, and I'm so glad we're sharing this journey together. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.